I'm dying. You're dying, you're dying, you're dying. We are dying. Everyone in this world, no matter their beliefs, have two things in common. You were born into this world, and then you will die. And even though this is one of the most absolute truths in the world, death is not a comfortable conversation to have. My interest in this subject was sparked when my dad died in June from a year-long battle with prostate cancer. And living my life knowing that my dad's death was inevitable was a huge struggle for me. And through this struggle, I found that we as a society need to talk more openly about death, because death can change your perspective. Talking about death will alleviate the stigma of dying. And by acknowledging that death is inevitable, it will allow us to live our life to the fullest. With that, how many of you have experienced the death of a loved one? Many of you know that death changes you. A couple of years ago, my friend Alexis went through her own loss of a loved one. Her brother, at the age of 23, died of a sudden overdose. Years later, my friend Alicia lost her dad to lung cancer in a matter of months. During this time, when both of my friends had lost their loved ones, I noticed a difference in them. Their personalities weren't necessarily different, their interests were still the same, but there was just something different. They were more open to new experiences. They didn't care what other people thought about them, and they were unapologetically loving the people around them. I did not understand this until I experienced this myself. My change in perspective can best be defined by a recent hiking trip I went on. It was a rigorous hike, and it was horrible weather. It was rainy, it was windy, it was freezing. And as we made it to the summit, my friend asked me a simple question. He said, "How are you feeling?" And I replied back, "I'm happy to be alive." It's only been 6 months since my dad died, and even in my grief, I feel gratitude towards death. Death allowed me to change my perspective, and it allowed me to become a more genuine version of myself. And for that, I'm thankful for death. Not only can death change your perspective, but by opening up a conversation about death, we can relieve the stigma that is dying. In my case, it was difficult to acknowledge death. It was hard. But what was even harder was being a student here at the University of Tampa and not being able to talk to my peers about why I was missing class and why I was going home every weekend. Even mentioning death as my topic for the speech contest had peers of mine saying, "Ooh, that's depressing." I get it. Yes, death is depressing. It can be uncomfortable, it can be traumatic, but most of all, death is beautiful. It's the natural progression of life, and it must be discussed. Some of you may have noticed that through this entire speech, I've been using language such as death and dying, and avoiding language such as passed away or went to a better place. That's because to have an open and honest conversation about death, we need to call death by its actual name. In my favorite book in the world, Harry Potter, the wizarding world calls the notorious Dark Lord he who must not be named. And it's Dumbledore, the head of Hogwarts, who encourages people to call him his name, Voldemort. That's because he doesn't want to stoke fear into something that's as simple as a title of a person. The same goes with death. Using words such as passed away instantly creates a barrier between us and death. We need to break down this barrier and show death the respect it truly deserves. What I'm about to say next you've probably heard before. But what if, after you lived out tomorrow, you knew you were going to die? Personally, I probably wouldn't go to my internship in the morning. The point is that acknowledging that death is inevitable will actually allow you to live your life to the fullest extent. Using death as a motivation in your life rather than a fear will allow you to break free from the fears in all aspects of your life. Because if you think about it, what's the worst that could happen? No matter the outcome or path you choose in life, you will die. The taboo of dying is one that we as a society must approach. We need to talk more openly about death because it changes our perspective, and it'll alleviate the stigma of dying. And by acknowledging that death is inevitable, it'll allow us to live our lives like we are truly dying, because we are. I will, you will, we all will. I'd like to leave everyone with a challenge. I challenge you to live every day and do one thing a day that's motivated by death. It could be something as simple as calling your dad and telling him that you love him, or preparing your favorite meal, or just sitting outside and just being. Death is inevitable, and with each minute that passes, we are one moment closer to becoming a memory. So, what are you going to do before you die? Thank you.